Stop. Don't scroll. Don't skip this. You didn't find this message by accident. You didn't hear these words randomly. This is not just another video. This is not just another voice. This is the answer you have been waiting for. Even when you stopped expecting one. You kept asking God for a sign. Not loudly. Not in front of people. But quietly. In your heart. Late at night. When no one could see you struggle. And now God says. This message is the sign. You've been carrying something heavy for a long time. A responsibility. A dream. A promise. A prayer. Something you can't explain anymore. Because you're tired of explaining. People tell you. Be patient. Be strong. Everything will be fine. But they don't see how tired your strength has become. They don't see the nights you cried silently. They don't see the mornings you woke up with hope. And went to sleep with disappointment. But God does. God says. I saw you when you felt invisible. I heard you when your voice had no words. I stayed when you felt abandoned. You wondered why it was taking so long. You questioned yourself. You questioned your worth. You even questioned God. And still, you didn't give up completely. That is why God is speaking now. You thought the delay meant denial. You thought the silence meant absence. You thought the closed doors meant rejection. But God says. The delay was protection. The silence was preparation. The closed door was not the end. Listen carefully. The work you started with faith. But continued with tears. The work you almost quit 100 times. The work people doubted. The work you doubted yourself about. That work is about to be completed. Not by your strength alone. Not by your connections. Not by your logic. But by God's timing. You don't see it yet. But things are already moving. Conversations you don't hear are happening. Paths you don't see are opening. Hearts you didn't expect are changing. God says. I am arranging what you could not arrange. You felt stuck. You felt behind. You felt like life moved forward. While you stayed in the same place. But heaven never stopped working on your behalf. Every tear you cried was stored. Every prayer you whispered was recorded. Every time you chose faith over fear. It mattered more than you know. You thought nothing was happening. But God says. Everything was happening. Now hear this clearly. The season of almost is ending. The season of not yet is closing. The season of waiting without answers is finishing. A new season is beginning. A season of completion. A season of fulfillment. A season where things finally make sense. God says. What I promised you will not fail. Even if people left. Even if support disappeared. Even if the resources ran out. God never left. God never forgot. God never changed his mind about you. You thought you missed your chance. God says. You were being positioned. You thought you were being punished. God says. You were being prepared. You thought you were losing. God says. You were learning how to win. Now the breakthrough is closer than you think. So close that fear is trying harder than ever. So close that doubt is screaming louder than before. Because fear knows. what's coming. And God says, do not quit now. This is not the time to give up. This is not the time to step back. This is not the time to lose hope. This is the moment. Your story begins to change. You won't have to chase anymore. You won't have to beg anymore. You won't have to prove yourself anymore. What is meant for you will come to you. God says, I am finishing what you started. The work will be completed. The answer will come. The door will open. The weight will lift. And when it happens, you will understand why it couldn't happen earlier. You will look back and realize every delay saved you. Every tear shaped you. Every waiting season strengthened you. God never wastes pain. So breathe. Trust again. Hold on a little longer. Because the work you thought was impossible is about to be completed by God Himself. You have to understand this. Right before something changes, everything feels heavier. That pressure you've been feeling lately, that restlessness in your spirit, that strange mix of hope and fear, that's not anxiety. That's alignment. God says, I am shifting things you cannot see yet. You've been standing in between what was and what will be. And that space is uncomfortable. Because the old no longer fits. But the new hasn't fully arrived. You tried to go back. You tried to settle. You tried to convince yourself to accept less. But your heart wouldn't allow it. That's because God placed something inside you that refuses to stay small. You thought you were being stubborn. God says, you were being protected. You wondered why you couldn't enjoy what others seemed satisfied with. Why average felt painful to you. Why settling felt like betrayal. Because you were never created for less. God says, I didn't bring you this far to stop here. You were tested in silence. No applause. No validation. No guarantee. Only faith. Only trust. Only the decision to keep going. Even when nothing made sense. And heaven noticed. You don't see the spiritual battles you survived. The moments where things almost collapsed completely. The situations that should have destroyed you. But didn't. That wasn't luck. That was intervention. God says, I stepped in when you were about to break. You were kept. You were preserved. You were protected. Even when you felt exposed. There were nights. You didn't pray long prayers. You didn't have strength for words. You just said, God, please. And that was enough. God heard what you couldn't say. Now listen carefully. The work you've been worried about is not delayed anymore. It's aligning. The people connected to it are aligning. The timing is aligning. The resources are aligning. Even the obstacles are being moved quietly. God says, I am working behind the scenes. You won't have to announce it. You won't have to explain it. You won't have to force it. It will happen naturally. And suddenly. One moment you're waiting. The next moment you're thanking God. One call. One message. One opportunity. One decision. And everything changes. You kept thinking, if this doesn't happen soon, I don't know how much longer I can hold on. God says, hold on just a little longer. Not because you're weak, but because you're close. Very close. Closer than you've ever been. The enemy tried to wear you down with time. To make you doubt with delay. To make you quit out of exhaustion. Because quitting now would be the greatest loss. God says, you didn't come this far to stop now. Even now, as you listen to this, something inside you feels lighter. That's not imagination. That's reassurance. Heaven is reminding you that you are not forgotten. The chapter you're in is not the conclusion. It's the turning point. The same God who started the work will finish it. Not halfway. Not partially. Completely. You will see results. You will see closure. You will see fulfillment. And when it happens, people who doubted you will be confused. Not because you proved them wrong, but because God proved himself faithful. You need revenge. You need validation. Peace will be enough. God says, I am restoring what delay tried to steal. Time. Confidence. Joy. Hope. Nothing is lost. Nothing. You thought the waiting weakened you. It actually strengthened you. You learned patience. You learned discernment. You learned endurance. You learned how to trust God when nothing was visible. And that kind of faith moves mountains. So don't rush. Don't panic. Don't assume the worst. The answer is forming. The door is unlocking. The burden is lifting. God is about to do something that will silence your doubts forever. You won't have to convince yourself anymore that God is real. That God is present. That God is working. You will know. Because the work you thought would never be completed